What happens when you feel the ground beneath your feet slipping away? When every decision seems to carry the weight of an uncertain future? This sensation of instability, this tightness in your chest that makes it hard to breathe deeply, has a name: anxiety. And if you've ever experienced it, know that you're not alone. Billy Graham, one of the greatest preachers of the 20th century, once said, "Worry is like a runaway train. It races without direction, but God offers the tracks of faith to guide it." The truth is that anxiety isn't exclusive to any specific era or group of people. It's part of the human condition. From biblical times to today, men and women have faced fears and uncertainties. What changes is how we choose to respond to them. In moments of crisis, many of us try to control everything around us, as if we could predict the future or avoid the inevitable. But this pursuit of control, paradoxically, only deepens our distress. Imagine this. You're on a boat in the middle of a storm. The waves are high, the wind is strong, and you start rowing frantically, trying to escape the turbulence. But the harder you row, the more exhausted you become, and the harder it feels to navigate. Now, imagine someone offers you an anchor, something that can stabilize your boat even amidst turbulent waters. That anchor is trusting God. In this video, we'll explore how the teachings of Billy Graham, combined with profound psychological insights, can help you face daily worries with greater clarity, purpose, and tranquility. We'll dive into biblical wisdom, understand why Jesus instructed us not to worry about tomorrow, and learn how God's sovereignty can transform your perspective on control and uncertainty. By the end, you'll have practical tools to start trusting God more and relying less on your own strength. So, take a deep breath. You're about to embark on a journey that could change the way you view your fears and struggles. Anxiety is like a storm at sea. When you're in the middle of it, everything feels out of control. The waves toss you from side to side, and the sense of helplessness can be overwhelming. But even in the roughest waters, there's something greater that can keep you steady. Consider Maria, a fictional woman who faced a personal crisis. She was on the verge of changing jobs, but her mind kept spiraling. What if she failed? What if the bills didn't add up at the end of the month? What if no one understood or supported her? Each question fueled another until she felt like she was drowning in her own concerns. This story could belong to you, me, or anyone around us. The truth is, anxiety doesn't discriminate. It's a natural response to uncertain situations, but problem arises when we let it dominate our thoughts and decisions. Billy Graham often highlighted that fear and worry are common human experiences, especially during challenging times. He would say, God knows your struggles before you even face them. He's ready to carry your burdens. But why are we so prone to worry? From a psychological perspective, we can understand this as the negative impact of overthinking. When we focus too much on the future or the past, we lose our connection to the present. It's like trying to drive while looking only in the rearview mirror. Invariably, we'll crash into something ahead. Modern society also plays a significant role in this. We live in a world that values control and predictability, but life rarely follows a clear script. When things don't go as planned, our minds go into high alert, trying to anticipate every possible negative scenario. This cycle of exhausting thought only increases our sense of powerlessness. Pause for a moment and reflect. When was the last time you felt the need to control everything around you? What does this reveal about your deepest beliefs? Are you trying to take God's place in your own life, assuming responsibilities that weren't meant for you? The good news is that recognizing this pattern is already the first step toward changing it. Anxiety may be a universal human experience, but it doesn't have to define who you are. There's a way out of this storm, and it begins with a simple choice. Trust. Now that we better understand the reality of anxiety, It's time to explore a powerful solution, the biblical instruction not to worry. In Matthew 6:34, Jesus clearly says, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." These words are simple, but they carry profound wisdom. Imagine your mind is a boat in the open sea. When you try to row against the current of worry, you waste energy unnecessarily and end up exhausted. But what if, instead of fighting the waves, you allow God to be the wind propelling your boat forward? That's the essence of what Jesus is teaching here. He invites us to trust the flow of life, knowing that God is in control, even when we can't see the path ahead. Billy Graham often explained this concept in practical terms. He would say, God doesn't promise to solve all your problems immediately, but He promises to be with you while you face them. This perspective changes everything. When we choose to trust God, we recognize that He has a bigger picture than we do. It's like looking at a puzzle without understanding the full image. But knowing the one who designed the puzzle sees exactly where each piece fits. Let's use another analogy to make this clearer. Think about gravity. You can't see it, but it works. Similarly, God's presence may not be visible to our eyes, but His faithfulness is unshakable. When we surrender our worries to Him, we're placing our trust in something far greater than ourselves. This trust doesn't mean challenges will magically disappear. Billy Graham experienced this in his own life. Before some of his largest evangelistic crusades, he faced intense doubts and fears. He questioned whether he was ready, whether people would accept him, and even whether God was truly guiding him. But instead of succumbing to worry, he chose to surrender his anxieties to God. And it was in those moments of surrender that he found peace. And you? What are you holding on to so tightly that you could surrender to God today? Perhaps it's the fear of failure, financial worries, or the weight of complicated relationships. Remember that God doesn't expect you to have all the answers. He simply asks that you trust Him, even when the path seems unclear. Trust is you. Would trust gravity. Let God carry the weight you weren't made to bear alone. God's sovereignty isn't just a theological concept. It's a practical truth that can transform how you face life's challenges. Billy Graham often emphasized that God is sovereign and has a plan for every individual. He would say, "You may not understand the purpose of everything right now, but God is always working for your good." This perspective completely changes how we view difficulties and uncertainties. But what does it really mean that God is sovereign? Imagine your life is like a large tapestry being woven. From where you stand, at ground level, all you can see are knots and tangled threads. But from above, God sees the complete pattern. Every knot, every tangle is part of something far greater and more beautiful than you can imagine. This doesn't mean the process will be easy or painless, but it does mean there's a purpose behind it all. This concept can be compared to the psychological idea of synchronicity, developed by Carl Jung. Synchronicity suggests that seemingly random events may be connected in ways we don't immediately understand. For example, you might lose a job and initially see it as a tragedy, but months later, you realize that loss opened the door to a much better opportunity. God operates in a similar way. He uses seemingly chaotic circumstances to shape our journey and guide us toward His plan. Let's return to Maria's story, the fictional woman we mentioned earlier. After surrendering her worries to God, she began noticing small coincidences in her life. A friend invited her to interview for a job in a completely new field. An unexpected mentor appeared to guide her, and gradually she realized that God was directing her steps, even when she couldn't clearly see the path. This act of surrendering to God's sovereignty requires a fundamental shift in mindset. Instead of trying to control every detail, we need to learn to follow divine leadership. Billy Graham used to say, God hasn't promised us a path free of obstacles, but He has guaranteed that He'll be with us as we face them. Here are some practical steps to begin applying this trust in God's sovereignty to your life. First, set aside 5 minutes each day to meditate on Bible verses that reinforce trust in God, such as Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Second, write down your worries in a journal and pray about them. This helps externalize your fears and surrender them to God. Third, remember that God is sovereign and has a greater plan, even when circumstances seem difficult. What would be different in your life if you chose to trust God even without all the answers? Would you finally find peace in accepting that some things are beyond your control? Faith isn't just a feeling or an abstract idea. It's a deliberate action, a daily choice to trust God, even when the path ahead is shrouded in fog. Billy Graham often said, "Faith is like a muscle. The more we use it, the stronger it becomes." And that's exactly what we need to do. Exercise our faith, especially when everything seems uncertain. But what does it mean to surrender your life to Christ? Many people think of it as a one-time event, a specific moment when they make a decision. However, surrendering to God is much deeper. It's a continuous process of letting go of control and allowing God to take the lead. It's like navigating a river with many bends. You can try to row against the current, but it will be exhausting and ineffective. Or you can simply allow the current of God to carry you to the right destination. This process of surrender is closely linked to the psychological concept of individuation, developed by Carl Jung. Individuation is the journey of integrating fragmented parts of ourselves, our fears, desires, and contradictions to become a more whole and aligned person. From a spiritual perspective, this integration is only possible when we surrender our weaknesses to God and allow Him to strengthen us. Let's think about John, a fictional man who faced an emotional breakdown after years of work-related stress. He tried to handle everything on his own, accumulating responsibilities and avoiding asking for help. But one day, he reached his breaking point. In a moment of desperation, he decided to surrender his worries to God. He began praying daily, asking for guidance and strength. And gradually, something surprising happened. He realized he didn't need to have all the answers. God was working in his life in subtle ways, bringing peace where there had once been chaos. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It requires practice and patience. Here are some practical tools to help you cultivate this daily surrender. First, start each day with a simple prayer, handing over your worries to God. It can be as brief as, "Lord, I surrender this day to you. Guide my thoughts and decisions." Second, reflect on areas of your life where you're still trying to maintain control. What do you need to let go of? Third, seek community. Just as John found support on his journey, you can benefit from conversations with friends, mentors, or Bible study groups. Remember, faith doesn't eliminate life's challenges. Instead, it gives us the strength to face them with a renewed perspective. When we trust in God, we're acknowledging that He is greater than any problem we might encounter. As Billy Graham once said, God hasn't promised days without storms, but He has promised to be with us through every wave. What would be different in your life if you chose to fully trust God today? How could this surrender transform the way you deal with fear and anxiety? We've reached the end of this journey, but what will you do with the truths we've explored? Anxiety is a universal human experience, but trusting God offers a pathway to overcome it. Throughout this video, we've delved into the reality of anxiety, biblical instructions not to worry, God's sovereignty, and the importance of faith as a practical response to our fears. Now, the invitation is clear. Put these teachings into practice. Remember, God hasn't promised to remove all storms from your life. He's promised to be with you as you navigate them. Billy Graham summed this up powerfully when he said, "God knows your struggles before you even face them. He's ready to carry your burdens." This truth should be a balm to your soul. You don't have to face anything alone, Don. So here's the practical challenge. Today, write down a worry weighing on your heart and surrender it to God in prayer. It can be something small or something that seems impossible to resolve. It doesn't matter how big the problem is. What matters is your willingness to trust. Share your journey in the comments below. Who knows? Your story might inspire someone else to take the same step. I'll leave you with one final quote from Billy Graham, lesser known but profoundly meaningful. "Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen." These words remind us that even when the future is uncertain, we can have peace because God is faithful. He is worthy of trust in every situation. May this moment mark the beginning of a new phase in your life. A phase where you choose to trust God more and rely less on your own strength. May you find peace in the midst of storms and clarity in moments of uncertainty. And remember, you're not alone.